Hey gang, Dr. G, Imaginarium. So I'm always talking about the imagination here, and I wanted to point out something really important about it. A lot of times when people talk about the imagination, they get all starry-eyed and they look into the middle distance and they talk about how the imagination allows us to fly into the heavenly realms and go beyond the stars and see things that are worlds of pure fancy and all of that sort of thing. And yeah, technically that's true. But if you're asked, like, what's the point of that? Like, why is it that we can do that? And I wanted to really highlight the fact that the human imagination, and likely the imaginations of other highly intelligent animals, but since we know humans best, I'm going to stick with that one. The human imagination, I think, is one of the most powerful adaptations the biological world has ever seen. If you think about it, we have the ability to immerse ourselves into worlds that don't exist or even worlds that can't exist. But it's worth stepping back and asking yourself, why is that a thing? Why did that evolve? Like, what's good about it? What's useful about it? The problem with being so romantic about the imagination is that we tend to miss the fact that it is very functional. And in fact, we are using it constantly all the time. And what I want to talk about today is the fact that we misuse it all the time too. As often happens in nature, one of the most powerful tools available is often going to come with a great deal of possible drawbacks and disadvantages. We have that for many other adaptations in the animal world, and the imagination is really no exception. Okay, so picture this situation here. Use your imagination. Say you're in a relationship and you're displeased with it for whatever reason. Your partner is doing something that you wish they wouldn't do, or they're not doing something you wish they would do, or whatever. What I often see when I'm working with folks with relationship problems, many other problems too, but we're going to talk about just relationships here in this video, is that they get caught up in an imaginary situation where their partner does what they want or doesn't do what they don't want, and they get kind of stuck there rather than meeting this person, whoever they are, at their level and accepting them for the choices they are making or not making. Okay. And that's a problem. That's when we see the imagination being used in such a way that's actually harming themselves, or it's counterproductive, destructive, whatever you want to call it. There's many ways in which the imagination is incredibly constructive and integrative. When things go wrong, though, is when we are fragmented, when we're disconnected. And the biggest problem in this situation is that you're using the imagination in a way that's not helpful. So, but you might say, Dr. G, I've tried to express my concerns with this person and they won't listen to me. So then my question then gets to the real heart of what is often a problem in relationship issues and many other issues too. But it's, have you really and truly addressed the issue at the most fundamental level, which is basically asking yourself a question. If you really and truly have shared your feelings with this other person and they either won't or cannot listen to you, then you have a choice you have to make. And that is what I'm getting from this relationship worth it? Is it worth it? And only you can answer that question. I cannot answer that for anyone, and I don't try to, because it's not an easy question. But the problem is that up until the point that I start asking that kind of question, they typically avoid it completely. They avoid the question, and they will pretend as though that someday maybe this person will just be what I can imagine them and want them to be, and I see them in my imagination and so forth. That's a major problem because it causes relationship conflicts to go on and on and on. Now, you may say fairly, well, what about, Dr. G, the fact that I'm very afraid to share my feelings? I know they won't listen. I know that it's a waste of time. Okay. The issue, of course, it circles right back to the same issue. It's okay, then is it worth it to you to share your feelings? Is it worth the risk? And this, again, it's not a frivolous question. It's not an easy question by any means, but it is the question that you need to address and make a decision once and for all in order to get past this problem, whatever the problem may be. In this manner, we are using the imagination for what I think it was best intended, and that is to create creative solutions to construct meaning from the random chaos of the universe, rather than to construct what we wish it could be, but there is no chance of it being, or what we wish it could be, but we're not making much effort in order to make it that way. Those are all misuses. Those are all problems and incorrect usage of the imagination. The imagination is like magic in a fantasy world. You can create, you can do all sorts of things with it, and it can also kind of go wrong, and it can create the wrong things, and it can send you down wrong pathways. Okay, so the question then that you really want to consider is what I'm getting out of this relationship worth the drawbacks? Because the final thing that I want to get to is the misuse of the imagination, in the sense that we expect, or we want, perfection. We want it to be completely free of any misgivings or downsides. And that's just not how life works. That's not how people work. Um, if you are wanting perfection out of your partner, my advice is to take a look at yourself and make sure that you're perfect first before you start asking for that, because chances are you ain't. And so this is the real question then, is what am I going to accept and what am I not going to accept? Now, everybody has a right to decide that for themselves, absolutely. But what you don't want to do is just continually get lost in the what ifs. What if it was just better? And what if it went, okay, what if? That's great. How about we deal with what actually is and imagine moving forward in that direction?